Hello, it's Keith here, and this is a special episode to discuss my new book because, yes, I've written a book and it's available now. The links for buying it will be below in the description and the comments. You can buy it from Amazon, you can buy the print copy, or if you prefer digital stuff, then you can get the Kindle version instead because some people prefer that kind of thing, although I am personally very happy to see these books. Now, these were printed with Kindle Print on Demand, so, I've not some multi-million-dollar selling author or anything. These can be printed in volumes of one, so anyone can buy them and anyone can make a book. And that's the other thing I'm going to be discussing in this episode. I'm going to be telling you everything that I've sort of learned doing this. This is not me trying to claim to be some amazing expert author or anything, far from it. This is me saying if some idiot like me can make a book, then you probably can as well. So if you have any aspirations in that direction, give it a go, because I've done it with literally no money. Use all free software and you don't need to spend any money to register to write books on Kindle. So you should give it a go if you feel like it. Anyway, we'll be going through the book. We'll be discussing the printing, the quality, the design of the graphics, and also the contents in case you're interested in buying it. And as I say, if you're not interested in buying it, then we'll be discussing what it's like to create a book with Amazon Print on Demand. Okay, so anyway, here's the book. These are 2 copies that I ordered from the Japanese branch, but you can order it from any of the regional branches, I believe. So, they should all come out exactly the same. Now, the first thing I have to say when I saw these is I was absolutely blown away by the print quality of the cover. The cover, you can see it's my sort of war-damaged processors here. It's a very black background and there's a very subtle fade in. There's some very, very faint print here, which is by design. I wasn't expecting it to come through, but this design, I've had trouble with it in the past on t-shirts and things. Often the colors don't mix with the blacks well and it ruins the effect. So I had to really blast the colors, and even then I wasn't sure it was going to come through. This is amazing. I was absolutely stunned when I finally saw it. During the printing process, during the proofing process, you can request proof copies, which are basically finished copies. They just have a strip saying proof on them. Now, I live in Japan, and I was setting this up on the Western store because it's in English. I'm going to have no Japanese customers really, and I didn't want any problems with regards to it being released in Japanese territories and people having to import it or anything weird like that. And also, the Japanese website uses Japanese terms and conditions, so I registered on the US website. The US website only allowed me to request proofing copies to UK, US, etc. So I had them shipped to my parents, who did the proofing for me. They sent me some photos on their mobile phone, but the quality of the photos didn't do these justice. These are spectacular. The quality of the photograph on the front is spectacular. I mean, just to give you a comparison, I made a mock-up which I use in my adverts for the videos, and this was printed on an inkjet. This is slightly faded out. The background isn't right. It looks okay, but the colours haven't blended properly up here. I mean, this is a regular inkjet on regular paper. This is amazing. Absolutely amazing. Couldn't have asked any more than they've done here. So, yeah, absolutely amazing. But, yeah, as I say, the proofing copies I couldn't request from the Japanese branch, even though I was able to buy the finished book from the Japanese branch. And also, the proofing copies only cost $4, which is the print cost of this book. You can also, as an author, buy author copies which don't have any kind of proofing, so they are commercially viable. I've ordered 20 of those for my own purposes, for giveaways, gifts and things to high value patrons, and just for my own historical purposes. But I couldn't buy those from Amazon UK, and we think that might be something to do with British exit. And I've had to order them from Amazon US because although I could buy these, which are retail copies for 2,200 yen, I couldn't buy the author copies from the Japanese branch. So the Japanese branch does seem to be isolated from the Western ones, which doesn't surprise me at all because, of course, Japanese books are often reversed. They're very popular in the comics and things, and so there'll be a lot of differences, I suspect, in the printing process and the paper sizes and the other thing and legal things with regards to the language and the tax requirements and things. So it doesn't entirely surprise me that Japan is very separate from the Western ones, which is why I set my book up on the Western ones. So anyway, as I say, amazing print quality, both front and back, and also on the spine. The alignment is absolutely incredibly perfect. When I created the book, I uploaded this as a PDF. The entire, both covers, was a single page PDF, and I created that with Scribus, the free software. That I did the alignment on that. The graphic, this is a photo. This is a JPEG, I guess, and these are PNGs. These were all created with Krita, the free graphic editor, as was that. So they were all put together into a PDF in Scribus, and that was uploaded. The software on the Amazon website shows you where the cut marks are going to be, the folding marks, and it was all absolutely spot on. I mean, they've got it down to the millimeter really, which is especially impressive because the software warns you that there's a boundary around the book that you can't have anything important in. There's this sort of red line that says, hey, you can't have anything in here, and we might reject the book if you put anything, which is why I had to move the learnasm.net and the URL here. They should have, ideally they'd have been right in the corner, but that would have been outside of the specification of the book, so that would have been an issue. Now, one thing that possibly I could have done better, I guess, is this book is A5 size, which is worked fine, but A5 isn't a default format on the US site, so I had to create an override format which worked great, except when it comes to designing the cover, they've got an online designer which isn't very advanced. You can just select the text and it will drop it in a generic low graphic background, but it doesn't look great. But you can download templates to create your own, but you can't download templates to create your own if you've overridden the paper size. So it wasn't a major problem for me, but if you weren't very confident with your graphic design software, maybe if you'd used one of the default size page sizes, that would have made it a little bit easier for me. But as I say, it only took me half an hour to fix that, so that wasn't a major problem. But yeah, fantastic print quality, absolutely fantastic there. And that doesn't end with the cover. The actual contents of the book are also amazing. I mean, the print looks, I mean, it looks like basically laserjet print internally. I don't know how they print these, how they master them, but it quite possibly is laserjet. It has that look. I did some test prints on a laser printer just to, check how the grayscaling was going to work and to check the font sizes and things like that. And there's no real difference in what you can see here as what you would see on the laser printer. So as I say, the internal quality is as good as a decent laser printer, which I think is excellent. Now you can see here, I'm just talking about the content of the book rather than the printing procedure. This is the first chapter. The first chapter is an introduction, so this goes over terminology and concepts that you're going to come across with assembly language. So what is a CPU, what is memory, and you've got little diagrams here that I've drawn to represent things. Sometimes it's a sort of often it's just a comparison, a down-to-earth comparison. So your processor is a bit like a calculator and your memory is a bit like a sheet of paper with the results on it, and the memory store's addresses are a bit like a locker, or at least they are in my mind. So I've tried to use some nice little diagrams along the way to give things a bit more of a down-to-earth feel, because the first chapter was really designed for beginners. Now, all of the artwork I've done here, I designed in Blender, the 3D rendering software, because easier to get the perspective all right. And if you're drawing chips loads and loads of times, well, you render it, you design the object once, position it, set the scene out, and then you don't need to worry about altering it if you've not got all the objects in the right scale and things. So a scene like this, I designed the paper and the in tray in Blender. I then exported this to Krita, and then I drew the character in and drew over the lines of the Blender render so that it had a hand-drawn feel. But as I say, all the perspective and all the complex shapes were pre-drawn for me by Blender, so that I didn't have to worry about drawing them from imagination or drawing rough sketches and then building it up. So yep, we've got all of these. The book itself was written in LibreOffice, and the PDF that was sent for printing was done with LibreOffice as well. I didn't use any other software to create the PDF to do the page setting or anything. So all of that was done with LibreOffice. The tables are done with LibreOffice again, with LibreOffice Calc in most cases. Some of the screenshots were done with EarthenView or Krita. So it was all done with free software. I didn't use any commercial software in this, even though I do have access to Office 365 and also InDesign. I preferred to use free software. So again, as I'm sort of saying, if you're on tight or zero budget, you can create a book without spending any money on software these days, because there's so much great free stuff out there. So anyway, as I say, the first chapter is all technical stuff with regards to things like what are bitmaps, what are sprites. You know, if you've never programmed before, you might not know these, so we'll go through them all, discussing them. And then once we get past the first chapter, we then go on to the per processor chapters. Now the book covers Z80, 6502, 68000, 8086 and ARM, and each of those has a single chapter. It starts off with an introduction discussing the registers, then it goes into things like the flags, the what's that there? There's more on the flags there. Sorry, I can't remember the contents of my own book. Then we go into addressing modes, and then there are some examples for each of the systems, how to get started with one of the systems. So Amstrad CPC for the Z80, 6502 is this Commodore 64, 68000 uses the Genesis, 8086 uses MS-DOS box, and the ARM uses the Game Boy Advance. Just one system for each, the easiest system to get started with, because this is a beginner's book. Now, I would have loved to have made a book that covered more systems, but it gets harder and harder the more I cover, and I'm no amazing genius, so you know, the more I try and put in there, it's going to be very hard for me to discuss with any authority dozens and dozens of systems. So I needed to keep the content as limited as possible to make getting this book out a reality. So after the introduction of how to build a file, there's then 3 examples for each system. Now these are basically the simple series. We've got the Hello World example, we've got a bitmap on the screen example, and then we've got a moving a bitmap around the screen with the joystick or keyboard example. Now it's a slightly improved version of the original. I'm using XOR now to make the code a little bit shorter. But basically there's a simple example on all of the CPUs, and then after that we go into the instruction set for each CPU, and you can see there's a quick instruction set for every major or possibly every instruction for the CPUs. In some cases like the ARM, it's a more limited set. On the 8086 it's just the 80 up to the 8186. I'm not covering the 64-bit machines or anything crazy, it's just the early system, just as a getting started guide, as I say, because it's only a 270 page book. But we go through all of the instructions for each of them. This is the Z80, but then we go on to the 6502, 68000, and then 8086, and then the ARM. So we go through all of the CPUs in the same way, exactly the same content where possible, obviously different layouts for the instructions, but that's how we go through each of them. And then finally at the end you've got an appendix with the ASCII character set, just in case you needed that, and then an instruction set reference with the page numbers for all of the instructions. So there we go. So that's the contents of the book. The book is $19 in print, or $10 in Kindle, if that's what you prefer, and it should be available from the local stores. So if you've got a local Amazon to your country, if you search on there for Chibi Akamas, my book should come up and you should be able to buy it there if that's what you want to do. So that's the book. We're now going to go over to my other screens, and we're going to have a look at what it actually takes to get a file converted and upload it to the Kindle store for proofing. We're just going to briefly discuss that. So let's go over and let's take a peek. Okay, just switch over to my screen here. So here is the Kindle Create software. This is free. You can download this. You don't even need to log in or register or anything. And so basically all I did was I went to create new. We're going to start from scratch here. Reflowable is where the document can resize depending on the size of like the tablet device you're using. Now, in the early days I was hoping to do reflowable, but you have to use Microsoft formats for that, which was going to be a problem. And also because I've put some forced formatting in with regards to specific places for page breaks and things in the terminology section and things, doing a reflowable document would have meant a second stage of proofreading, and to be honest I really couldn't take any more proofreading. It was starting to drive me a bit crazy. So I did in the end decided just to use print replica, which means that it doesn't resize depending on the document. Now when you use print replica you can just use a PDF, and the PDF I'm using I exported straight out of LibreOffice. It just exported just fine. So if we select this here, and if I just resize my window a little bit here, so you can see here's the document, and then all I did was, if I go to preview here, you can see here that actually all of the chapters have transferred straight across automatically. I've done nothing, and that's actually in the PDF as well. That's because LibreOffice, if you set your titles and subtitles up correctly as print page styles and use them, then it all transfers across automatically, and that's the same for the indexes and tables and contents. The main index was automatically generated just from the styles I used. The appendix lookups for the instruction sets were additional user-defined indexes that I created. So yeah, as I say, the export from here from LibreOffice, I do nothing in here, and I just save this as a KCF. I think it's this publish option, and then we just export this as a KPF. That's it, and I imported that into the Kindle Direct Publishing website for the Kindle version of the book. Now, the only thing I'd say is it's possible I could have maybe just used the normal PDF. I started looking at this for the reflowable. I used a normal PDF for the print version, but being as I'd already got this and it seemed to recommend it, maybe I could have used the PDF, but I actually used the export from this. Anyway, if we just go over to my other screen here, if I just get my other window up. So this is the Kindle Direct Publishing website here. I don't want to reinstall Chrome. So this is my account here, and so basically you just need to register with the website here. It's free. You don't have to pay anything to publish the book. They take a cut of the book sales, so there's no initial costs or anything except for paying for the proofing copies, which is just about £4, $5 per copy, plus shipping. So I say signing up is completely free, and all you would do to create a new title is create either a Kindle ebook here or a paperback. There's a few simple questions, and then you upload your file and you upload your cover either as a PNG or a JPEG for the ebook, or you're probably going to want a PDF for the paperback if you want a nice cover like mine. Once you upload them as two separate objects, the print copy and the Kindle copy, and then you merge them together, and I've already done that, and that's how we've got this one object here. The only thing I would say that I probably did wrong, so to speak, with creating this, apart from using the non-standard paper size, which, as I say, wasn't a problem, is I probably should have created this a lot earlier and uploaded a test copy very early on just to check margins and things. I didn't know what the procedure was going to be like. I thought it was going to be like maybe a one-shot deal where once you'd started you have to finish and everything was fixed. But you could edit absolutely everything at every stage. So I could have changed the title if I'd changed the title halfway through. I could have changed the page sizes and everything. So there weren't any problems. But if, for example, I hadn't properly check my margins and maybe the page number was right down the bottom in the invalid area, maybe that could have been something could have seriously caught me out in this stage. So maybe I should have created this a lot earlier and uploaded very early beta copies just to check what Amazon thought of them. I suppose that could have helped, and it could have helped a bit with the design of the cover, because, as I say, I did have to redesign a few bits because I had put these far too low. The Learn ASM logo, I put it right at the bottom, and there is, as the proofing system here would tell you, an area that you cannot put things, and they'll reject the book if you put things there. Now, there was no problems with the final approval process on my book. They didn't complain about anything. The ISBN number they provide for you. You can buy your own if you're planning on selling on multiple stores, but if you're just selling on Amazon, you don't need to do that, so you can just use theirs. So again, another thing that is completely free. As I say, it's all fantastic, and yep, there's really nothing to stop you if you feel like making your own book. As I say, all the software I used was completely free. The registration on this website was completely free, and up until the point of buying a proofing copy, which is also optional, that was completely free. I could have, in theory, sold the book and started taking money without spending a single penny, because, as I say, they take a cut of the money. Now, they take the print copy. The costs of the book printing depends on if it's black and white or colour. Colour's 3 times the price, so that wasn't an option for me. But the 270-page book here, I think the print cost is about $4 or something like that. And then they take 40% of the remaining cost of the book after that. So I'm making about $7 in all territories on the sales of this book, on the $18 retail price, which I think is very good. I suspect you don't get that in a lot of places if you were publishing in other ways. I think getting a third of the retail price is more than most people would probably get, I suspect. So that I got absolutely no complaints on that. Now, the Kindle pricing is a bit weird. I'm not a fan of digital stuff. I prefer physical stuff, but I didn't want to hold anyone back who only wanted digital, so I have sold it as a Kindle book. Now the Kindle book is being sold for $10. Now, the weird thing with Kindle pricing is there's two versions. You either get 35% of the sale price, or 70% if you sign up for the KDP Select thing. Now, the KDP Select is basically you're restricted in what you can do with the book. You have to offer it on Kindle Unlimited. You have to give them exclusivity for 3 months or so, there's a few other things, and it only works in some territories and things. Now, 70% of $9, $10 means I'm getting my $7 again, although I'm getting very, very slightly. I'm getting a few cents less than on the print book, which is a bit meh, but that's the way it is. Now, the problem is that if I only got the 35%, then basically I'd be making $3 in this book, and it wouldn't be worth me selling digitally. And if you've ever sat there grumbling, why is the Kindle version as expensive as the print version of the book you want? Well, maybe that's why, because as I say, if I wasn't willing to sign up for the exclusivity and things, I wouldn't be willing to sell this for $3.50 per copy on a $10 sale price. So I think that might be the issue. But as far as I can tell, I'm getting $7 on the digital copies. If we look at the sales, we might as well have a look at the sales. So this is the sales so far. This is how many copies have shipped, and this is how much money in each form has been made so far. So it looks like I've made I think that's $140 on the print copy in the US and $50 on the digital copy. Those are the 2 copies I bought in Japan. That's me buying for myself and giving myself 1,000 yen there. And so you can say, I mean, it's selling a few copies. It's all going to be a question of how well it sells over time, though. But anyway, the point I'm making is you can see that ebook royalty seems a little bit low. But as I say, I'm making roughly $7 per copy. I think that looks like 2 digital copies of that book there. So as I say, it looks like I'm getting the 70% rate rather than that rather dismal 35% rate on the digital copies. So I am reasonably happy there. Anyway, as I say though, really what I'm saying is if you've got any aspirations or any dreams even of making your own book and seeing it in print, I think there's really never been a better time, because if an amateur for no money can make a book that looks as nicely produced as this, and you can see there's even the subtle grey shades in the background there, and as I say, I've never used word styles before this, so if I can manage to knock up something that's reasonably passable and looks fairly professional and I can maybe make a little bit of money on as well, then I'm sure you can as well. And as I say, if you want to buy the book, please take a look on Amazon, because it would really help me out. Now going forwards, I'm going to be doing some more tutorials. I've got 65816, I've got Arm Thumb and Easy 80 coming up, but also as well what I'm planning to do is a very basic introduction series, and that is going to be in a lot of ways based on the content of these first chapters. Now that's how this book came about. I was planning this new absolute beginners series, and I was going to do it on PowerPoint type slides, and I thought, well, I'm going to need proper graphics and I'm going to need a script, and I'm going to have to work this script out, make sure it's solid and that I'm covering all the content. And I kind of thought, well, if I'm going to do that, I might as well write a book, and so that's what I've done. So the content of the first chapters will be reworked into a PowerPoint style presentation, but I'm going to have to wait the 3 months until the digital exclusivity of Amazon wears out before I can do that, just in case. But as I say, if you buy the book, then I'll be very happy, and also if the book makes good sales, there will be more books in the future. So if you can do so and you're willing to, then please consider doing that. Anyway, I hope you've found this interesting today. I hope it's inspired you into taking some interest in my book, or taking some interest into writing your own book. Thanks for watching today, and goodbye.